गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। वणक्कम, जय हिंद और प्रणाम। गाजा कॉन्फ्लिक्ट यानी हमास और इसराइल का जो लड़ाई है वो अभी अक्टूबर 7 से चला जा रहा है और तकरीबन 4-5 महीने हो गए। अभी खत्म होने का टाइम आ गया मेरे हिसाब से। और टू सी दिस कि क्या क्या रास्ते हैं इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को टर्मिनेट करने के लिए, उसके बारे में बात करने के लिए मेरे साथ हैं कर्नल राजीव अग्रवाल। राजीव, वेलकम टू गाना शॉट दोबारा। सो आई एम सो ग्लैड टू हैव यू हियर।
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
राइट। इससे पहले कि राजीव कुछ बोले, मैं बताना चाहता हूँ खुलेआम कि amongst those people who we naturally normally follow, Rajiv is the one person who's most informed about the West Asia situation. And his articles, चाहे हिंदू में हो या टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में हो या ट्रिब्यून में हो, are some of the best articles I have read on the West Asian situation. एंड हमारे साथ इन्होंने जिस तरीके से ईरान के बारे में कवर किया, मेरे ख्याल में और किसी ने कवर नहीं किया। सो टू दैट एक्सटेंट, एंड हैविंग नोन राजीव अभी पिछले 30-40 साल से मैं इनको जानता हूँ, I am very glad that he's made time for coming on Ghana Shot. So Rajiv, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Right. So today we're going to talk about like I said, about the pathways to terminate the Gaza conflict. So what I'll do is we'll just recap and then I'll hand it over to you. Okay. So देखिए, अभी हमें पता है कि ग्लोबल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हो रहे हैं, यूक्रेन का लड़ाई चालू है, यहाँ वेस्ट एशिया में है और साउथ चाइना से में भी तनाव। ओके। इसके अलावा अगर हम देखेंगे तो सिर्फ ये वेस्ट एशिया में देखेंगे, इजराइल वर्सेस हमास वर्सेस हिजबुल्लाह वर्सेस सीरिया चल रहा है। हर दिन देयर इज अ स्ट्राइक बाय इजराइल अगेंस्ट हिजबुल्लाह और वाइस वर्सा। हमास के साथ तो बहुत संगीन लड़ाई चल रहा है इनटू गाजा, सबको पता है। यूएसए वर्सेस हौतीस चालू है रेड सी एरिया में और ये रुक ही नहीं रहा और इनफैक्ट बढ़ रहा है। इसके अलावा ईरान वर्सेस सीरिया, इराक, पाकिस्तान भी चला था, थोड़ा रुक गया पर ये खतरा टला नहीं। इसके अलावा इसके बावजूद इंडियन नेवी जो है एंटी पायरेसी ऑपरेशंस एंड रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशंस कर रही है नॉर्थ अरेबियन सी में। और तो और नॉर्थ अरेबियन सी में ईरान, पाकिस्तान, रशिया और चाइना का हर दूसरा दिन कुछ न कुछ नेवल एक्सरसाइज या कुछ कुछ कार्रवाई होता रहता है। तो इस हालात में इसका मूल कारण कहाँ है? वो मूल कारण गाजा क्या, राइट? और गाजा, इजराइल, हमास, और इसके बारे में जानकारी हासिल करना इंपॉर्टेंट है। अगर आप गाजा का मैप देखेंगे, ये न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स का मैप है जो आपको दिखा रहा हूं। अभी साउथ गाजा में ऑपरेशंस चल रहे हैं और यहां तक हमें सबको खबर मिला है या न्यूज़पेपर के जरिए कि राफा के ऊपर स्ट्राइक होने वाला है और जिससे इजिप्ट वगैरह वगैरह भी आ जाएंगे ये पूरा प्रॉब्लम के अंदर। ये मैप देखिए, ये क्या है? ये लाल स्मॉल रेड डॉट्स क्या है गाजा के अंदर? ये वो है जो इजराइल ने स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट्स बना लिया है, राइट? स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट्स क्या है? ये इन्होंने क्या है, जहां भी इनका टोली है, wherever they have established the post, they have few armored vehicles, some artillery guns or some soldiers, इन्होंने चारों तरफ रिंग फेंस करके बंद बना लिया या दीवार खड़ा कर दिया या नेचुरल ऑब्स्टिकल्स बना दिया जिससे वो प्रोटेक्टेड रहे और यहाँ से दे गो आउट, डू देयर फाइटिंग एंड कम बैक, रात को वापस आके यहाँ रुकते हैं। तो इन्होंने अपना अपना छोटा छोटा फोर्टिफिकेशन बना लिया। ऊपर नॉर्थ गाजा में तो पूरा कवर कर ही लिया। खान यूनिस तो कब से खत्म हो गया, अभी राफा की ओर बढ़ रहे हैं। तो ये है स्थिति और इस स्थिति के अंदर कुछ बातचीत हो रहा है कि किस तरीके से गाजा का ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट खत्म हो सकता है, चाहे वो हो या ना हो हमें नहीं पता, क्या मुमकिन है या नामुमकिन है हमें नहीं पता, पर इसके रास्ते क्या है, हालत क्या है वहां, व्हाट आर द चांसेस, अगर हम रास्ते भी बताएंगे उस चांसेस में सक्सीड होने के लिए क्या है। तो यही आप राजीव, कर्नल राजीव हमें बताएंगे। पहले ये बताएंगे हमें वहां का हालत क्या है, तरीके क्या है, पाथवेज क्या है, फिर इनका सक्सेस का चांसेस क्या है, किस चीज के ऊपर निर्भर है कि ये सक्सेस हो या ना हो। सॉरी फॉर दिस एक्सटेंडेड इंट्रोडक्शन, मैंने सोचा कि पूरा ऑन द प्लेट लगा दें, ऑन द टेबल, फिर आप शुरू कर सकते हो। राजीव, ऑल योर्स।
Thank you, sir, and thank you for laying out such a extensive framework because it makes my job easier when I'm trying to explain the current situation and how it is likely to play out. So we all know that Gaza war has been on for last 4 months plus, and the news or the inputs that we see every day, there are no signs of the war, either slowing down or ending anytime soon. And right now, with the developments which you have just mentioned, depicting on the map also, I would say that Gaza war is at a very serious inflection point, and it could go either way as the developments take place in the next few days. You showed the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is about a 41-kilometer long linear strip. And since 7th October, when Israel started its counter-offensive, it has been bombarded by aerial strikes, by artillery, and later by ground troops. And at least the northern Gaza part and most of the southern Gaza has become a total rubble and may be, in a state which is totally uninhabitable for long periods of time to come, even if the war stops today and reconstruction starts in its right earnest. That is the kind of destruction that has taken place. A number of efforts have been attempted to see that the ceasefire is finalized and accepted by parties. And except for about a 7 8 days truce that happened in the last week of November, there has been no success because neither of the parties is ready to accept the other party's plea or the conditions for a ceasefire. So it is in a very tricky and a bad situation. The last ceasefire proposal that we know, it was brought to the table in due consultation with the people sitting in conference in Paris, which included people from US, Egypt, Qatar, as well as Israel. And the proposal that they came forward on, which was put forward on 28th January, was that there will be a 6 weeks of ceasefire and there'll be exchange of hostages. And as per what we have come to know, that for every three Palestinian hostages, one civilian Israeli hostage would have been freed. And when it came to Israeli Defense Forces, IDF soldiers who are hostages, that ratio would be higher, but that should be negotiated later. And at the end of 6 weeks, they would again see if the ceasefire could, go on. So that was a proposal which was worked out in Paris on 28th of January, in which Israeli representatives were there. But even as the proposal was being brought out, Israel, gave out a statement that there were some conditions that were not acceptable even at that point. So when this proposal was put across to Hamas, they studied it and they came out with their counter proposal on 7th of February, which said that instead of a 6 week ceasefire, they would look at a 135-day ceasefire in which there'll be total exchange of all hostages on either side. Israel would have to withdraw all its troops from the entire Gaza Strip. And in these 135 days, an agreement would be reached on how to end the war and how to look at the future of the Palestinian demand for a sovereign independent state. As soon as this counter proposal from Hamas was put forward, the first one of the first statement that came out was from Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, who called the whole proposal as delusional and just not acceptable. And interestingly, when this proposal was brought out, the counter proposal from Hamas was brought out, Secretary Blinken, Secretary of State from the United States, he was in the region. He was in Riyadh to meet the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Sultan. and thereafter he met Netanyahu. But the whole exercise went in vain because neither of the parties were ready to accept it, and Blinken was forced to say that yes, it has not made the kind of headway that he was hoping for, and but he was hopeful that in coming forward, some kind of a uh, proposal could be worked out again, and ceasefire could be brought about. Now, so this is the background to the ceasefire. Now, why I call that Gaza is at a very serious inflection point is because, as most of us would know, Israel has announced publicly that they are going to launch a major offensive in the only remaining place where the Palestinians from Gaza are staying. That is in the southernmost tip of Gaza Strip, in a town called Rafah, which is bordering Egypt, and which is that uh, point from where the relief and aid comes into the Gaza Strip. Now, the entire population of 2.3 million people who are staying in Gaza was earlier forced to vacate overnight from northern Gaza in the month of November, and they were asked to move in southern Gaza. The entire population, whatever survived after the onslaught of the bombardment and airstrike, moved into the southern part of Gaza, and the entire northern Gaza was blockaded by Israel, as you would see on the map, the red dots that are shown on the map. Now, whatever is remaining of the 2.3 million population is surviving in southern Gaza, even as it is being bombed by Israel. And the only enclave or a safe area, as you can call it, was in the border town of Rafah because of the Egyptian pressure. Now that Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu in particular have announced that they are going to launch a major offensive in Rafah, the population of Gaza has nowhere to go. The entire north has been bombarded and in occupation of Israel. The progress of operations has gone down into southern Gaza. Khan Yunis city, which is a major city in southern Gaza Strip, has been totally, under bombardment and attacks by the Israeli forces. Till yesterday only the report came that the last safe or surviving hospital in Khan Yunis city was also targeted by the Israeli forces. So now it is the question of total annihilation of the population of Gaza if the offensive takes place in Gaza. So that is why it is a make or break point as far as this war is concerned. And realizing this, eventuality or the possibility, the way Israel is going without any concern to what the world is saying, there has been a absolute clear shift in the positions of all major players. So if we go back to
Yeah, you lost your voice.
not accept any kind of sir.
No, yeah, please go ahead. You have to
Yeah.
repeat.
So
You see, your voice went down.
okay. So Israel, I was saying, has marched up troops and tanks and missiles at the Rafah border, and they are very clear that any kind of a offensive which leads to mass casualties in Rafah, or Israel trying to force Rafah crossing open and pushing Gazans into Egypt will not be accepted. US has made it very clear that you cannot have uh, such kind of massive operations in Rafah. You can have some kind of a targeted killing of the Hamas operators who were responsible for the terror attack of 7th October, but they would not accept any mass operations going into Rafah. And so this is how it is going about. And there are some very interesting turnarounds that are happening in the region as far as this Gaza war is concerned. So I'll go one by one. And the first and foremost is the most visible and interesting, that is the Saudi Arabia. Now, we all know that Saudi Arabia geographically also is the biggest country in the Arabian Peninsula, and has always been the leader of the Muslim world and the most powerful and influential voice in the region. However, in this Gaza war that has been going on for last 4 months, Saudi Arabia has been slightly, I would say, ambivalent, and has taken a step back as far as forcing the issue in this war is concerned. and it is basically left to Qatar and Egypt, and to some extent Turkey, who have been trying to negotiate ceasefire, who are upping the political ante, etc. And for number of days and months, Saudi Arabia was seen more in a ambivalent kind of a situation. But now the situation, now their stand seems to be changing, and to me it looks more about situation born out of frustration that nothing is happening, fatigue factor, as also a sense that if the Rafah operations go about, they would have very difficulty in explaining why Saudi Arabia did not do what it had to do as a leader of the Muslim world. So three developments I would just mention what has happened. On 7th of February, Saudi Arabia communicated a very clear position to the US administration that whatever efforts Secretary Blinken was trying in his visit to Riyadh to have a side-by-side effort towards diplomatic relations and reconciliation with Israel go on. So they made it very clear that there cannot be any diplomatic relations with Israel till the time the demand for an independent and sovereign Palestine state is met. Thereafter, immediately a day later, they had a consultative meeting in Riyadh with major countries like UAE, Egypt, Jordan, and Palestine, where they again reaffirmed their position for independent and sovereign Palestine state. And on 10th of February, Saudi Arabia, reacting to Netanyahu's call to its armed forces that they will carry out a major offensive, they said that it will have very serious repercussions of storming the Rafah. So now these three statements coming at a very short time and closer to what the visit of Secretary Blinken and the Netanyahu's call for a major offensive are clear indications that Saudi Arabia may be forced to take a stand if the Rafah operations go about or even are threatened to start. The second interesting and very very important development that is taking place is as far as the United States position is concerned. Now, from day one, we've been saying that United States has been supporting Israel, but on one hand, but has also been calling for ceasefire and end of war and humanitarian aid, etc., to go by global consensus on that. So it is having a very what I would call a muddled and confused strategy in this war. And despite a lot of opposition back home, domestically, politically, US has been hell bent on supporting Israel and has pumped in billions of dollars of direct military aid also to aid Israel. However, the tide now seems to be changing in last few weeks or so, and on 6th of February, the US House did not pass the Israel's military aid bill of $17.6 billion dollars. And yesterday, then the US government had to take the route of the Senate to see that the military aid combined package for Ukraine and Israel is passed. So there's a conflict going on domestically. Number of senior senators have come out strongly and in open in the opposition to US aid on Israel, especially Bernie Sanders, who has been very, very vocal. And on 8th of February, even US President Biden was forced, to say that Israel's intention of carrying out operations in Rafah would be, not correct. And he said Israel's response in Gaza has been over the top. Interestingly, you would also recall that South Africa had lodged a case in International Court of Justice, and the International Court of Justice, when it held its hearing, they accepted that there was a case to be investigated as far as the allegations of genocide by Israel in Gaza are concerned. And so, if we believe the reports, US has given Israel 45 days to file a proper reply. It was also mentioned in one of the press conferences in the White House that US has given Israel 45 days to answer to these allegations of genocide. or else they would be forced to stop the military aid. And here I would like to draw the attention of the viewers to some of the videos which have surfaced online, where in one of the videos we see that Israeli soldiers dressed as medics are entering into a hospital in Gaza and then shooting doctors and nurses point blank. There are a number of videos which have surfaced online where Palestinian civilians, not soldiers, Palestinian civilians have been gagged and bound and made to run and then shot. So these are brutalities which have been caught on camera and for which Israel has not yet rebutted them or done anything to counter the narrative. So it is these things are being taken note of. As far as US is concerned, it has also got many more challenges, which it is facing. Its troops in Syria and Iraq are being attacked regularly, and it has already suffered three announced casualties, for which it became very difficult for US to take or not to take direct action against any of the proxies or Iran. We all know, as General Shankar had shown on the map, that Houthis are creating havoc in the Red Sea, in the mouth of the Red Sea at Bab al Mandab. And despite a carrier group being positioned by the US, not much is happening, and all US or Israel flagged or bound ships are being forced to take the longest route across the Cape of Hope, from down from South Africa and upwards. We also know that United Kingdom had also pitched in to support the United States in its naval fleet, but had to beat a retreat where both the aircraft carrier as well as the destroyer faced not only resistance but also problems in continuation. And so US is virtually fighting a lone battle as far as the Red Sea is concerned. And despite its military naval superiority, the Houthis have been able to inflict damage not only on the warships but also on civilian ships. US has also announced that based on the attacks that its troops are facing in Syria and Iraq, as also the call by the Iraqi government that US troops should leave Iraq. There's a plan that US will withdraw troops from Syria and Iraq in next 90 days. So there's a lot of flux which is going on in US also, and at some point of time I feel when pressure goes beyond what Biden can handle in this presidential year, they may also be forced to take a stand which may not be pro-Israel in its uh, uh,
Orientation.
orientation towards Gaza. The next is obviously Israel. And when I say Israel specifically, it is Netanyahu who has also started feeling the heat of the war. He has vowed that he will annihilate, Hamas and eliminate it from the face of the earth. He said that he'll flatten Gaza to the ground. Yes, Gaza is being flattened to the ground. There are reports that even the buildings which are destroyed and are uninhabited, they are being flattened by bulldozers in an attempt that Israel is trying to create a buffer zone of about a 1 kilometer wide along the border with Gaza for a future, situation when the war ends. And all this is not going down very well with the Israeli public. Already there are reports that out of the 130 hostages who were there, 32 have already been killed. And out of that also, there were some input that three more have been killed in yesterday's strike, which happened in Khan Yunis. So the desperation of the relatives of the hostages is increasing by the day. And on 22nd of January, large group of relatives of the hostage, they burst into a cabinet meeting which was being held in Israel, and they demanded that the government should take a call on immediate release of hostages rather than carrying on with this war. There are two important ministers, Minister Gadi Eisenkot, who's a former chief of staff of the IDF, as well as Benny Gantz, who's the leader of the National Unity Party, who had joined the war cabinet. And they have come out in open to denounce Netanyahu's policies of continuation of this war until total victory is achieved. Uh, in the north, as you had shown on the map, the targeting by Hezbollah is increasing by the day. and there are some very very accurate and specific hits that the Israeli forces have taken in the north from the Hezbollah shelling and firing. A lot of their surveillance centers and command centers have been targeted, and so Israel is feeling the heat in the north from Hezbollah, and with the known arsenal of Hezbollah, which is huge and cannot be discounted. Israel will have to remain cautious of how this war progresses and how Hezbollah continues to join the war, although it has taken a very cautious kind of approach to now. So this is the whole scenario of how the situation is building as of now.
Yeah, thanks. You outlined the whole scenario, what it is. One can see Israel is just hardening its position. Hamas is not giving way. The peace deal is going nowhere. In fact, it is there's no peace deal on the table left now. Right? Everyone is in a desperate situation. I think generally, whether you call it USA, call it Saudi Arabia,
Saudi.
and right, yeah, anyone in that region is in a problem. Only two actors who are probably happy with this whole story. One is Qatar, because Qatar is getting the leverage to speak with whom it wants, and it's punching much above its weight,
Yes, yes.
right? And of course,
Iran.
Iran. Iran is sitting happily back and saying, okay, जो भी होने दो हमें मिल रहा है. And Iran's power in this region and hold in this region has gone up. So if this be the case, and I don't see prospects for peace happening just like that, right? But there are also talks of how this whole story can terminate. So before we get into the likelihood of all this whole story and say no, no, ye ho hi nahi sakta, what are the likely pathways for this Gaza war to come to some kind of a closure?
So I wrote about it about a week back that what are
Yeah,
the
that's what.
possible options, how it can end. So the first thing that has to happen, and it is very improbable, but if it has to happen, is that Netanyahu has to be pushed out from the government. There already a huge movement going on in Israel. His war cabinet is virtually revolting against him, and even yesterday there was a report where even his defense minister, who has stood by him and complimented each of his efforts, is not fully in sync with what is happening in Gaza. So Rafah operations to me will be a critical point where things can go break for as far as Netanyahu is concerned. And if that happens, a more moderate and a more reasonable leader is brought into the Israeli cabinet to head the Israeli government and the operations. Some kind of sanity can prevail. So this is one option, that domestically within Israel there has to be something which pushes Netanyahu either to accept the reasonability of this war and how it should end, or at least the ceasefire should be there, which can thereafter look at options on how to end the war, or then he is pushed out by internal domestic pressure. The second is the next important player, that is the United States. Now, I have just listed out the some of the major developments that are taking place in United States, again internally and domestically. And as the Gaza war continues, the timing is such that the U.S. presidential elections, which are to happen in November this year, will come closer and closer, and the pressure will start building on the U.S. government. We have seen in last few days that a number of European nations have also come out publicly to say that the Rafah operations, etc., cannot go on. The French president has come out and given a public statement. There's been a joint statement given out by the leaders of Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, saying that military operation into Rafah would be catastrophic, and that Israel should listen to their friends. The prime ministers of Spain and Israel have publicly come out and given a statement, and they have even said that the association of Israel with the European Union should be reviewed in case Israel, continues to go ahead with the threat of offensive in Rafah. So when you combine every thing, it becomes very difficult for US to solely, along with United Kingdom, keep supporting Israel. And so I feel that if Israel and Netanyahu are hell bent and they continue with going ahead with the major offensive in Rafah, US might as well, get a good excuse that this is what we were saying that cannot happen, and so this might be the excuse that US is looking for to pull the plug on supporting Israel. And once the US support goes, then Israel would not be able to go as blatantly as it is being going. But that is the only umbilical cord for support that is left as far as Israel is concerned, majorly. The third factor is a very important factor, and that is the regional players. I have spoken about Saudi Arabia. I have spoken about Egypt, how it is, amassing troops and saying that it is a red line. Qatar and Turkey are already, been projecting for the political support in this particular war. As we know, Turkish president has made a visit to Cairo to meet the Egyptian president Sisi, and they have collaborated and come out with a statement that we need to work together towards a political and military solution to this problem. And there were even reports that countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan have said that they will not permit the airspace to be used by US or US aircrafts to fly when supporting these operations from the Red Sea or the Mediterranean Sea. So, if there is some convergence and great convergence between these countries, including Iran, as some of us may know, Saudi Arabia and Iran in last 3 or 4 days have had detailed talks on cooperation on military and defense issues, and there's a sense that the Saudi Iran peace deal or the reconciliation that was signed in March 2023 at the behest of China is progressing and can progress ahead with this. So, if all the regional countries unite, which is not the case right now because neither the OIC nor the Arab League nor any other forum has been able to put out a united front till now. So, if all these major countries unite and put up a strong political front and a strong military threat, then maybe it will become a deterrent for Israel to go in for a major offensive in Rafah. And last, option that I had written was a wild card option of India being, a backseat and a quiet interlocutor. And we know how PM Modi can work his magic in most adverse situations. He met the Israeli president in COP28 summit in December 23, and his meeting had a visible difference on that time how the operations were progressing. And we also know that PM Modi and Netanyahu have a very, very personal, close rapport. Uh, Modi has just been to UAE and Qatar. It may have been for different reasons, but there is no doubt that Gaza war was always on the table for discussion. So I would say that when the situation is really going out of control and none of the regional or global players is able to make a dent, then maybe a wild card like India could, pitch in quietly without being on the forefront and do the magic. So these are the only options that I see how to end this war in Gaza and not to have this Rafah offensive go in, which is being threatened by Israel.
या आपने जो बोला है उसके साथ मैं मोटे मोटे तौर पर सहमत हूँ कि first is get Netanyahu out of the picture so that the Israeli position changes. The second is that USA, being a election year, maybe in a month or two, starts pulling out. It gives the ultimatum कि भैया ये खत्म करो नहीं तो हम आपको कुछ नहीं देंगे. Right? That's the second option. जैसे आपने बताया. थर्ड ऑप्शन है कि ये इजिप्ट, सऊदी अरेबिया, टर्की, कतर, ये सब मिल मिला के दे कम अप विद अ सॉल्यूशन, सम पार्ट सॉल्यूशन. ठीक है. तो एंड ऑफ कोर्स इंडिया, इंडिया के बारे में हम लास्ट में बात करेंगे. क्या एक और ऑप्शन बन सकता है कि हमास को बताया जाए कि आप थोड़ा पीछे हटो?
Hamas, Hamas took out this attack on 7th October, but right now the way the operations are progressing, I would say the operations have gone well beyond what just the Hamas or this leadership would want. They have achieved their aim on 7th October when they internationalized the Palestinian issue, once again and stopped the reconciliation happening between Saudi Arabia and Israel. But right now, the stakes are higher than what Hamas remainder of leadership, whatever it wants, even if it wants that let us go get back on the table. I think it is beyond what just Hamas wants right now.
Right. Is there any other pathway option? देखिए अभी ये like you said एक अकेला वो रफा ही रह गया जहां ये कुछ लोग हैं. अगर रफा को भी नष्ट कर दे इसराइल, जो करने वाला है, आप उसको हम उनको रोक नहीं सकते हो. राइट, जो लोगों के पास होगा होगा. इससे इससे क्या है कि पूरा गाजा मिट जाएगा. right? And then Israel could well say, okay, we've achieved the operation of destruction of Gaza. Now, if you want us to get out, give us Hamas, and lay down conditions and start winding down. And it to that extent, is that an option?
Sir, that possibility exists, and that is what Netanyahu is banking on. That once the Rafah operations are finished and Gaza is almost uninhabitable and vacated of all its population, then they would just dust their hand and say, "Okay, now let us see how to end the war." But the elephant in the room, as far as this is concerned, are the 130 hostages. So, will Netanyahu and his government be ready to sacrifice these 130 hostages for a mission of the proportion that they're thinking of? That is a big question.
That is,
They're
yeah, I
already
agree with
suggesting.
you. I agree with what you're saying. But you see, आप देखिए जिस तरीके से नेतन्याहू is behaving. नेतन्याहू knows कि भाई ये आखिरी दाव है इसका. I mean, आखिरी दाव है, आखिरी time he's holding party election and all. He's fighting with his back to the wall. So what is he trying? I mean, the way I look at it, he's seeing how can I finish off the problem for a long time to come. Okay. If he continues with the Rafah option and erases Rafah, then the Palestinians will have no place to go. And this time, I'm sure Israelis will not give them aid. Okay. Aid will have to come from the international community. International community will not give, and that's the end of the Palestine problem. And then the Palestinians and Hamas has to decide whether they want to fight or live. That seems to be Netanyahu's thing, and he's prepared to pay the price. कि भाई ये कर दूंगा, and if I have to resign or be thrown out, so be it. Okay, that's at least in history he'll go down as a person who saved Israel. And then he'll tell Benny Gantz or Gadi or whoever it is कि भाई आप चला लो, अभी peace कर लो. Right? Is that on the cards? What I'm saying?
Sir, I would say that is what Netanyahu is banking upon, that
Yeah,
he would finish off the operations militarily and then say that the job has been done, we have achieved total victory. There is no more
yeah.
Gazans left in Gaza, and Gaza will never be given back to the Palestinians. And that military victory has been achieved. But there are two problems in that. The moment this happens, and Israel has already, Netanyahu has already said what was feared for many years, that he had no intention of a two-state solution. So, moment that happens, and the sense that there is going to be no Palestinian state hereafter, and the Israelis, okay, let us say the 130 hostages have been sacrificed, and Netanyahu says for a larger cause, I could not get them back home, and so that is what it is. But can Israel, in the thin strip of geography that is there, even if the West Bank and Gaza all are converted into Israel, can Israel feel safe with hostile Arab nations around it? The problem is,
Yeah.
this can only be a happy situation for Israel if there is total apathy for the Palestinian cause as far as the other Arab nations are concerned. So if Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, everyone, they say, okay, Palestinian issue is gone, and so it is gone for good, and let's move on. Then only this thing can happen. Otherwise, Israel can never be safe if even if they take away entire Gaza and West Bank.
Okay, let me counter this. Let me counter this. Whatever has happened so far, after this, anyway, Israel can never be safe, whether you destroy Rafah or not. Okay, that notion that Israel can be safe hereafter is gone. Some say degree of safety of Israel can come about if Israel starts negotiating and it accepts this two state theory somewhere, and then you progress from there and come to. But right now, if that doesn't happen, there's no safety. One thing for sure, which is Israel's position, is they're not prepared to accept the two-state solution at all. I mean, this acceptance of two states or non-acceptance of two-state solution is across the party line. There is no one in Israel who says accept the two-state solution. The far right in Israel, right, which is the Netanyahu support base, says go ahead. The center and the left, because Israel is politically a very, very fractious
Yes.
nation. The center and the left say tone down and let's negotiate. Okay, and there's no point in going ahead with the whole story. And the difference between whatever is at this point of time to Netanyahu's final position is a matter of another 15 days. If the Rafah offensive starts, he'll finish it in the next 15 days, irrespective of the whole thing, and then he'll talk. What about that option? And that's a very
So
fast option.
that's a very fast option. And that is why when we started this show, I said that this is a very serious inflection point as far as Rafah is concerned. So it could
Yeah,
go either way. If the Rafah operations go through, then Netanyahu and Israel would be happy to declare that they have, achieved their military objectives, and now they are ready to negotiate. But what about the other party? Will they be then ready to negotiate on a platform where
yeah,
they feel that they've been defeated? And coming back to what you were saying about Israel's, internal gambit, yes, Israel, the way the war has developed over the past 4 months plus, it is not going to feel safe for a long time.
never.
The kind of hostility that has been generated, but not going through the Rafah operations and getting a ceasefire at this stage, which only give them a face saving if a ceasefire takes place, and it's a prolonged ceasefire, it's a 6 week or a 8 week or however many days it is, it'll break the momentum of the war. It'll help Israel change the narrative slowly, and as and when some kind of a end state comes about, it'll give hope to both the parties, the Palestinians and the Arabs, as well as to the Israelis, that there can be some solution down the line. And like the Chinese say, China better than anybody else, that you leave this problem to the next generation to solve. So, but
Yeah,
that
okay.
that but that possibility has to remain. If that possibility is not there to be explored, then there's nothing for be left to the next generation.
Yeah, I this thing. So you will leave this at this stage and take some questions. And if I summarize, right, जो आपने बोला है, वो चार पाथ्स हैं. वापस आ रहा हूँ. नेतन्याहू को हटा दो, इसराइल और हमास बात करना शुरू करे, कुछ सीजफायर हो जाए, और सीजफायर गोज इनटू सम काइंड ऑफ अ पीस डील. दैट इज वन पाथ. ठीक. इसका होने का अंदेशा
बहुत
मुश्किल. क्यों? नेतन्याहू छोड़ने वाला नहीं है, और वो बिल्कुल सीरियस है कि राफा का ऑफेंसिव शुरू करेगा. वो अगर कर गया तो अगला 15 दिन 20 दिन के बाद ये कहानी वैसे भी खत्म हो जाएगा. उसके बाद उसको निकालो, कुछ भी करो, कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता. पर
Correct.
एक बार रफा का ऑपरेशन शुरू हो गया, फिर पीस लाना मुश्किल होगा,
Mushkil.
ठीक, बिकॉज देर आर लार्जर ramifications. Okay, US withdraws support. Okay, US could withdraw support if it faces more problems. खास करके अगर उसका कंडीशनैलिटी मेरे हिसाब से वो है कि चाइना के यहाँ कुछ हो जाए, वहां अगर कुछ आग लग गया तो हो सकता है ये बोलेंगे भाई बहुत हो गया, जैसे इन्होंने यूक्रेन के ऊपर बोल दिया कि भाई बहुत हो गया, अभी यूक्रेन
Enough.
इज इन
Yes.
मेस. Same thing they might say, forget it and go, because at this time they can't let you Israel down completely,
Yes.
right? While USA will say anything it wants against Israel publicly, but
Very difficult.
it cannot let that down because Israel is a way to control the Middle East. Okay, and this has been there for long, so that's a again a 50-50 option. Then, like you said, Egypt, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, because Egypt is most affected with this Rafah operation.
Absolutely.
So
Directly
Egypt
affected.
has to come out with some, yeah, Egypt has to come out and say, okay, let's do this, is this. Because as far as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, Iran are all concerned, ये तो पहले से खेल ही रहे हैं, इससे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है. So Egypt has some value in this, right? Egypt is still in talking terms with Israel, right? And Egypt has not yet entered the arena the way it has to. But the problem with Israel, Egypt is वो खुद कंगाल है आज के दिन, और उसका political power in the Middle East is also less. So that's a question mark. And as far as India is concerned, while बहुत लोग बोल रहे हैं India should take the lead, and this probably India, our Prime Minister's visit to UAE is a precursor to all this, and to Qatar, इसके बारे में कुछ बात हुआ होगा, and he might use some good offices with Netanyahu to come to some solution. Uh, I have my doubts. Let me be very honest with you. I have my doubts. क्यों? Not because Prime Minister Modi can't do it. India has never had this habit of doing this mediation. India had
Yes.
a golden opportunity to mediate the Ukraine-Russia war. It didn't. Even Turkey opted for it to do all that, but they didn't. We did but we didn't. Similarly, we wouldn't like to do it because the stakes for India in this entire deal are too high. Our relationship with Israel is very deep militarily and economically, and our relationship with the rest of the Middle East, including Iran, culturally is very deep, and we have high stakes there also. So I don't know whether India will have this thing. Yes, it will be a marginal improvement of our existing stance. But beyond that, whether India will be able to do it or not is a question mark. But I will not discount it either. I will not discount it either. So these four विकल्प जो हैं वो खुले हैं. देखते हैं क्या होगा. Right? I don't know whether how this will come out. So if you have anything else to add, we can. Otherwise, I'll take a few questions.
I agree with you, sir. I mean, these are the only four things. And as far
Yeah,
as India is concerned, India has always said that this is not a problem that we created. So why should we be the one, who
we
should be
should
there
be
to
the
solve
one.
it? But
Yeah,
when
just
it comes
wanted
to
to.
a brink where nothing is happening, so that is just a remote possibility. And
Yeah, yeah,
even if
yeah.
it even if it happens, I don't think India will be running with its flag high that we got it done. It will be a quiet backdoor affair.
Yeah, I agree with you. On that, I have not I don't have a doubt. So let's take on some questions. So look, this is a very complex problem. You are given some solutions. At the face of it, these solutions might be completely unworkable. But these are the only solutions on the table. और कोई है ही नहीं विकल्प. Okay. So right. So you have to choose the best amongst the bad solutions. That's how the whole story is. Well, to that extent, I go with you completely. Okay. Right. Pranam Shankar Col Agarwal, is this Gaza conflict part of Islamization of Europe? Eurozone debt crisis 12, Syria 2015, and Gaza 2023 refugees.
I don't think, I mean, Islamization of Europe and the influx of migrants started as a result of the Arab Spring in 2011-12, and thereafter from Libya and from other countries, it has been a trend. It has been continuing where illegal and legal migrants have been going to these European nations. This is a conflict of a very different nature. The stakes are very different. The objectives are very different. So I don't see any direct link between these two.
Yeah, I agree with you. Islamization of Europe is not because of the migration of all these people there. It is rather the internal policies of Europe
Yes,
which are bigger.
of
Who asked
accepting.
them to allow all these fellows? Who asked them
Absolutely.
to accept all these people? Okay, since they are being accepted there, these people are going and going away from their conflict-torn areas and poor areas for better life, betterment of life. And once they go for betterment of life, then they start the Islamization process. That's the process which is going on globally.
Yes.
Who asked the Europeans to allow these fellows? So let's not have a view that these people are going and they are going with a plan. They are going for immediately for something else. But the Islamization is the larger issue. Okay. Uh, right. What he says is so General Shankar predicted about Gaza has come true. Hard for Israel to fight Hamas and win. Even they have lost moral ground. True, genocide charges will not be easy for a soldier. Complete. Thank you, Tarun, for coming out with this thing. When ये जब शुरू हुआ था, when I said that this is going to be a hard fought affair and Israel will not win, everyone said, oh नहीं नहीं आप ये वो ये वो है. अब देखिए ये जो हो रहा है वो हो रहा है. और मेरा मानना है, ये मेरा मानना है और निष्पक्ष मानना है, इसराइल आकर इसराइल का हार होगा. हार किस लिए होगा? क्योंकि इट इज नॉट लड़ाई में जीत नहीं होगा. लड़ाई और में हार जीत की बात नहीं है. रिमेंबर, all conflicts have to be won on the table, and Israel has very little cards left to play on the table. That's the problem with Israel today. That is why I don't see this going anywhere. They have not played it smart. They have played it in a different manner.
Brash.
Well, it's a different game. So it brings me to the next point. All of you who have attended this, discussion, my request is please transfer all your comments into, all your chat into the comments, because I need more comments, because I have to beat the YouTube algorithm so that this thing goes further. See, we've got such a fantastic discourse by Agarwal, and very few people will see it. But if you people put your comments and you feel that Rajiv has done a good job of explaining the nuances of this complex problem today, please put your comments on the comments page also. I would request you all to do it. And of course, I would also request all of you, more of you who are seeing this video for the first time, to tell your friends and subscribe to Ghana Shot. Okay? Because I think, I have no doubt, I have got details from you only. आप लोगों ने बताया कि गाना शॉट इज द बेस्ट चैनल for strategic affairs, where you get a balanced view and the correct perspective. A lot of people have said this to me. So why shouldn't more of us in India and abroad get this balanced view? See, I want to put across, in the West, a lot of think tanks have their own YouTube channels and they propagate the thing. And हम सब देखते हैं उनको. ओके, हमारे यहाँ होता ही नहीं. हमारे यूट्यूब, हमारे जो जितने क्या थिंक टैंक्स हैं, दे आर मीडिया शाई. उनका यूट्यूब चलता है तो 100 व्यू भी नहीं आता. बाकी जितने हमारे चैनल हैं, मैंने तो आज तक नहीं देखा एक भी स्ट्रेटेजिक चैनल जिसमें आपको ऑल राउंड 360 डिग्री एनालिसिस होता है. हैव यू सीन, राजीव, एनी चैनल?
No, I mean, Gunner Shot, I've seen its growth for last 1 year, the way it has come up, and it has come up because of only two things. One is that the talk and the discussion on the channel is objective and apolitical. And secondly, the quality of content and the topics that are chosen are very relevant and contemporary.
Yeah. So I, want the best thinking to be brought across to all my viewers, so that we have an absolute clear idea as to what's going to happen, right? And not be not be carried away by political narratives. There are a lot of political narratives in India. I am not interested in them. Okay. Uh, isn't US just from time to time just verbally asking Israel to level its actions? Meanwhile, it actually closes its eyes to Israeli assaults in Gaza. Your take.
Yeah, so that is true. I mean, that has been happening for months, and US has a very, very strong and close affiliation to whatever Israel is doing, and it has often closed its eyes to a lot of atrocities and other things that has happened in Israel. What we have tried to say in this particular show is that there might be a moment now, sooner than later, where US will have to take a call that whether it can keep supporting Israel blindly, or does it also have to answer to both its domestic and global audience on what is happening in Gaza.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. There is a recent trend where war is lasting longer than expected. What are the key reasons that a giant army could not finish their operations and defendants are holding their positions that strongly? And defendants are holding their positions that strongly.
So that is true. I mean, whether it is the Ukraine war or the Gaza war, even Israel, when they launched their offensive on counter offensive on 7th October, did not expect it to be a prolonged war. And if we take the past precedents of Israel Hamas war since 2007, three or four major conflicts have taken place. None of them lasted for more than about 12 days, 18 days, 30 days. So this was not what Israel expected, but it was very clear from the start that what I call it, it was an unwinnable war. Why? Because when Hamas launched the strikes on 7th October, these were not the normal way in Hamas had been striking Israel for past 15 years since 2007. It was a very, very well orchestrated, planned, deliberated, logistically prepared operation that was carried out. And Israel was going to launch a counteroffensive into a thin, very densely populated and very densely built Gaza. And don't forget the famous Gaza metro, the intricate tunnels of network of tunnels which runs under Gaza, which Hamas uses very intelligently and cleverly. So this was always going to be a war which was never going to finish too soon, and it is going to carry on if no ceasefire or peace deals are found sooner.
Yeah, the larger question is why is war longer lasting? All wars are lasting longer than expected. There are two reasons. One, the political aim has never been clear. You see, in Gaza, the political aim is not clear. I've said this from the beginning. Hamas had a very clear political aim and they've achieved it actually. Whereas Israel will destroy Hamas is not a political aim which is winnable, which Rajiv has pointed out. So, in the absence of a clear political aim, you do what you want, you will not get it.
Okay.
Even you can have the best army, you will not get it. You look at the Ukraine Russia war. The Ukraine Russia war, the political aim was clear, but the army was not trained. The Russian military was not up to achieving the political ends. So it brings me back to what I keep saying, what Clausewitz said. Okay, war is politics by other means. Alternately, politics is war by other means. If this is diverse, if there is politico-military fusion is not there during conflict, wars will continue.
Yes.
Okay, that is the problem. The same problem we saw in Afghanistan. There was
Dragged on.
marked lack of politico-military fusion and objective in Afghanistan. They went with some idea, they ended up doing something else for 20
Yes.
years. So that is the reason why wars are elongating, and that is the reason why China will never go to war again. Okay, what is the likelihood for this conflict to spread across the Middle East? Can these attacks by Houthis be a possible tipping point for an impending enlarged conflict? It's already there. It's only expanding day by day. It's slowly expanding. The problem is not the regional conflict. The problem is conflict beyond. You know, that conflict was on the verge of expanding beyond when Iran and Pakistan exchanged missiles and drone strikes and all that. The chances are, if something else happens and it goes high, that is on the cards. It's already going on. Okay. Uh, okay. Akash says uh, the U.S. defense industrial conflict complex needs conflicts in the world to maintain profitability. It's unlikely the Israel-Gaza conflict would end soon unless they start a new one. Your views?
I mean that's a well-known fact that U.S. defense industrial complex is a very very big machine, and it runs only when there are conflicts where U.S. is directly or indirectly involved. But to put it very simplistically, that it can Israel Gaza war can only end if there's a new one. I mean that is putting it too simplistically.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, let's. Okay, he says, sir, can we consider the disproportionate response of Israel be done to prevent psychological and long-term effect of terrorists being emboldened as the bug image of Mossad and the big image of Mossad and IDF is destroyed?
I've not really understood what he
Okay,
wants
what he
to.
says is why. I mean, his view is that. Let me answer this. Look, the disproportionate response of Israel was more emotional, and it catered for the public more than having a cool head. The moment that October 7 incident happened, the big image of Mossad and the IDF was in tatters. Khatam. Image तो खत्म हो गया उनका उसी दिन. But they spoilt it by this disproportionate response. They should have carried out, they should have waited, shaped world opinion, even if they had to wait for 10, 15 days. They should have shaped global opinion and then started going in with a plan. They didn't use the psychological factor of war, right? They just went in for with a idea of revenge. They didn't build the nation's psyche to accept the fact that this is a tough war. It is an unwinnable war if you go blindly in. You go in with a plan. So right from day one, I've been saying they have not gone with a plan. Okay,
And here,
that's my.
and here, sir, I would add to what you are saying that the counter-offensive of Israel started on 7th October, and the entire narrative was there with Israel till about 17th or 18th October for 10 good days, despite all the aerial strikes and bombardment that were inflicting on Gaza. It was only when reports of hospitals and UN compounds and schools being directly targeted and mass casualties started happening that the narrative started turning around against Israel. So I fully, endorse what you are saying. This operation was launched in a fit of rage and revenge without a cool
Yes,
military thought,
full.
and that is why the narrative was lost very early in the battle.
Yeah, right. John Doe says they have to regain deterrence, which has been lost, but I don't think they'll regain the deterrence. Right? Look, this is an asymmetric war. This war had to be fought by Israel asymmetrically.
Yes.
There is no asymmetry. You're trying to destroy an irregular enemy through regular methods. That asymmetry has not been, brought to one level by Israel. Israel had many options to sort out this asymmetry. They have not used it anyway. Okay, the next comment is BB is doing what any Israeli PM would do in this situation. I don't think he will leave the scene. Let's see how things turn out. He might not leave. It might, because he's a very shrewd politician. That is something which we have to understand. He will not go. Might not go in a hurry, but he might also go after this Rafah operation if he has the guts to carry it through, and it appears like that. Okay. Yeah, this question: can Rafah attack lead to an official third world war in North Israel? In North Israel will lose the ground, but Hezbollah in case of a Rafah attack. Yes, your view.
I mean, Rafah is an inflection point to me as I study this war. And what is happening right now is that the conflict has already spread across the region, but actively the nations have not yet joined in. If Rafah operations go through, Egypt joins the battle directly. Hezbollah starts targeting Egypt more ferociously, and also comes to a point where ground troops come in contact. Yes, this could become a wide war, and it could go on for a long time. And we have to see, wait and watch.
Yeah, let's see how it goes through. Okay, right. I'll not take any more questions. Right, first and foremost, Devendran Karthik became a YouTube member. Thanks a lot. Vanakkam and Jai Hind. And one more is Venkat Tata has also become a new YouTube member. Thanks a lot. I will be right. Okay. Nipun has a question. He says, um, do Hamas and Hezbollah different sides of the same coin, or they oppose each other as Muslim sectors different? They don't. Let's be very clear. They're doing the same thing. Because Hezbollah, though it's a Shia-based militia and Hamas is a Sunni organization, their common enemy is Israel, and they don't have any object. They don't have a common ground to oppose each other because they have Israel in between. So that is not there. I see a disagreement. Also, I disagree with Colonel Rajeev and P.R. Shankar's view on Israel-Gaza war. It seems to me that both of you are talking the side of Hamas terrorists and opposing Israel for its action against. You think so? You think what this chap is saying is right? Look, Saikat, you must understand. War is war. It is not the matter of taking the side of a person or we. हमें क्या लेना देना है with Hamas or anyone, right? But the fact is, this is a position actually which I said this will happen. Like someone said earlier, on the day this started, I said this is going to be a problem, and it is just panning out the way it is. ठीक है आई एम नॉट सेइंग एनीथिंग न्यू जो मैंने 3 महीने 4 अक्टूबर 7 को जो मैंने बोला था वो आज हो रहा है वो सो हाउ डू यू थिंक इट इज यू कैन डिसएग्री विद मी टिल काउस कम होम बट जो हो रहा है ऑन ग्राउंड वही हम बात कर रहे हैं दिस इज नॉट अ ओपिनियन यू नो ये ये भैया ये क्या वो गोस्वामी है ना अर्नब गोस्वामी का शो नहीं है कि मैं चुप हो जाऊं आज क्योंकि आपने बोला है नहीं दिस इज what has happened. This is what was to happen. भाई नदी एक पार पानी नदी से जब चलता है ना एक रास्ता लेके चलता है जिस तरीके इसराइल ने शुरू किया था और जिस तरीके से हमास ने ये प्लान किया था वो रास्ता बड़ा क्लियर था वो रास्ता में ही चल रहे हैं हम अभी कोई नया चीज थोड़ी ना बता रहे हैं ओके so there's nothing new which I have said in this entire story. Okay, so that's how it is. Okay, let me take a couple more. Tamil Hindu says, I saw some videos where Saudi ministers are saying the current inhabitants of Palestinians are not Palestinians. They hate Hamas and wish Israel to kick them out. Is this just rhetoric? Yeah, any view of yours, Rajiv? Otherwise, I'll give a view.
Yeah, I mean, such videos keep appearing, but we all know that Saudis were not very keen on this current situation which is there, and they've tried their best to see that firstly they keep out of it directly, and secondly, sooner this situation is diffused, the better it is for them because Saudis want to move ahead within the region, as also have a patch up with Israel, which gets them more, direct and better connect with the United States. So. They had no love lost as far as the Hamas was concerned, and they were amongst the first to condemn the terror attack by Hamas when it happened on 7th October. But to say that
Yeah,
they think that Palestinians are not Palestinians in Gaza, I would say that that may not
that is
be.
a little extreme, but the major fact is that the Arabs are not entirely with the Palestinians. The Arabs
Yes.
don't want to help the Palestinians. Let's be very clear. That's also historically correct. The Palestinians are caught, and the Hamas is the one culprit which has put them in this. No one wants the Palestinians. Egyptians don't want Palestinians. Jordanians don't want Palestinians. Lebanese don't want Palestinians. Arabs don't want Palestinians. Even Iran doesn't want Palestinians. किसी इनको help नहीं करने के लिए राजी नहीं है. You see, watch, whenever ये जब भी खत्म होगा, let me see how many Arab nations come and help Palestine. Let me see. Terrorism तो चलता रहेगा, but this 2.3 or 3.4 million Palestinians, they will lead a miserable life for the next 50 years. They'll never come out of it. You watch the fun. Okay. Then second Goshal, you come and tell me who my side. Okay. Right. Last comment, and after this, I'll this thing. And besides content and quality, JPJP is responding to what I had said earlier. It's a patriotic surge that he's talking about gunner shot, feeling to talk, question, listen to military heroes after 75 years. This is the most special aspect of gunner shot as audiences. Thanks a lot, JB. I'm glad that you made this comment and clarified. See, this is a channel for India. It is not for Congress. It is not for BJP. It is not for DMK. It is not for Janata Party or some Samajwadi Party or anything. This is a party for India. And here, all of us. Okay, Rajiv was with me in Kargil operation, so I know him very well. Okay, this, my entire focus in Ghana Short is to get good, balanced strategic thinking amongst the people to democratize defense and security and strategy of India so that you people understand how India is progressing. Because as India rises, we will need this capability to think through. And this is the hallmark of all major powers. And I feel that as a major power, as a power which is going to happen tomorrow, we don't have this capability at the national level. इसीलिए मैंने पहले भी बताया आपको, हमारा थिंक टैंक्स थिंक करते हैं एक टैंक के अंदर, वो खुलेआम यूट्यूब के अंदर कोई बात नहीं करता है या किसी दे डोंट टेक अ पोजीशन इन सोशल मीडिया. Okay, and our security establishment naturally cannot come out in the open because of many reasons. Then who will do it? Do you want to listen to political people? You want to listen to all narratives who are actually looking at votes? Or you want to listen to a balanced view, professional view? So you take a call. You people have to take a call and then support yourself. Very simple. I have a very clear idea of how I will run Gunner Shot. I will run it Gunner Shot for India, for Indians to educate them. The day all of you feel that this is not educating you, I'll close it. If you feel it is educating you, subscribe to me. As simple as that. And then you'll get the best people professionally. Rajeev Agarwal is a colonel. But if you notice, after the initial rush, I've been getting him only to discuss the West Asia crisis because he's got a grip of this whole story. No one else I've seen write so well on West Asia. Okay, and I'm proud that he's educated all of us on this. Okay, so he's been my student. Now I'm his student on this aspect. That's the way I look at it. Okay. Anyway, thanks a lot. So kindly ask your people to subscribe. Uh, put your comments on the video so that more people can see this thing. We've had a very good discussion. We are trying to make the best out of a bad situation. And Rajiv, thanks a lot. We'll wait for the next event in this area. I'll get back to you on this crisis because this crisis is not going to run away. Right?
Thank you.
Sorry
Thank
to
you for
keep you. Yeah. And good evening to everyone and Jai Hind and Pranam. Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.